What's up, you what's what's up, YouTube? Got a brand new video for your listening pleasure, full of twists and turns, might even make you shed a tear. Okay, I'm lying. It won't make you shed a tear. You'll shed 1,000 tears. I'm lying again. I'm so cringe. RPGs are cringe. Lame. Unbased. Uncool. Off G. I had this thought process for a long time, and honestly, who could blame me? When I was a kid, I was promised greatness, big, amazing worlds filled to the brim with interesting characters and huge, amazing boss fights, and then half the game is exclusively me selecting prompts from a menu and watching my character fight for me. Reading textbooks worth of dialogue that my tiny child brain couldn't even comprehend. As a kid, I realized pretty quick that RPGs just weren't my cup of tea. I never would play them because they were boring and for math nerds, and I only played real game with heart-pumping action, like Freddy Fish!
I don't need to pay attention to this game. This is every Nick Jr. cartoon in one go. I don't need to pay attention to that. Alright, so what do I do?
And hell, even the Lego games I played as a kid had some more instant gratification and more of a feel like you were actually exploring and affecting the world around you. Tactile is the word I'd use. RPGs always felt too disconnected and separated from me, the player. That is, until one fateful day, my mummy set me down in front of the TV, and for the first time in my life, I heard the fateful, beautiful sound of the soft piano, the clean and smooth menu selection sounds, and the pretty and clean simplistic menu prompting a new game. This game finally did it. An RPG caught my attention. After years of disinterest, I cared about an RPG. Now, remember, at the time, I was incredibly young. I was... 8 years old. And I got to experience a new form of RPG that I never had before. This game had bridged the gap somewhat between most traditional action-focused games that I played in the past, and the world of stiff, turn-based RPGs of before. The solution wasn't particularly elegant, as I would learn over time, but on that first playthrough, it instilled inside of me something that I would never really give away. Like an STD wriggling its way through my genitalia. The intense need for more RPGs that I could actually love and get lost in was wriggling its way through my genitalia. Now, I don't want to say that every game that isn't exactly like what I am about to lay out is fucking horrible and objectively garbage design. But I do want to mention that even people like me with stupid fucking moron gamer brain can enjoy standard, traditional turn-based RPGs. Let's go ahead and lay out a general guideline of determining factors that lead me to personally enjoy these games. Let's rank them on a system that I'm going to call the P.I.S.S meter. Here it is. This is what it looks like. Read the little engraved text on the top. Yeah, it's the P.I.S.S meter, and it means this. P is for personalization. It's way easier to get invested in a game when you feel like you're making a difference. Personal choices that direct the game. I argue this can be pushed even further with allowing you to create a character, so long as the game actually does this right. I stands for involved mechanics. Anything that elevates a game's combat past the standard fare. I would put an example here, but that'd spoil the video, and you're a spoiled bitch for even thinking that I might put something here for your impatient ass. Oh, hey, sorry, that was really mean of me. I didn't even... Wait, you liked it? You want me to degrade you more? Well, I don't really know if... I could, but look, is this like a kink thing? It's a kink, yeah, it is a kink thing. Okay, well, we can handle that later. Why don't we, The first S stands for story. The story needs to be good. If the story is shit, the gameplay being turn-based is never gonna reach the heights it needs to be to keep me playing. The story is immensely important. A good story can even make me play a turn-based game that I hate the gameplay of. And the second S is for style. I mean, if a game is pretty to look at, sometimes this can make up for the disconnect between me and the character on screen. I have examples for all of these, but let's start this weird and strangely out of order. Primarily because writing scripts for these sorts of things leaves me feeling more exhausted than your mom after a night with me, zing! But also because I want to start with Final Fantasy XIII, since it was kind of the beginning of me having this weird and secret hidden love for RPGs. And if we're starting with FF13, then the point on the list that we're going to have to hone in on first is story. Final Fantasy XIII puts you in the shoes of Lightning, Saz, Snow, Vanille, Hope, Fang. The locations and meaning behind all of them, and what they mean for our characters, primarily Lightning and her sister, but sort of roping in the entire cast, is beautiful and fucking amazing. Without spoiling much and keeping things fairly brief, it just says on my script, it just says, explain the l'Cie and Lightning's role in it in the least autistic way you can manage. Without spoiling it too much or getting too into detail, the l'Cie basically are like, if you are a l'Cie, you are cursed to fulfill the ambitions of some big alien-like creature sort of deal. Ancient bullshit, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So basically, they don't live their lives for themselves anymore. They live their lives for this creature that they can't even empathize with. And once you fulfill your destiny, once you complete the thing that they're actually asking you to do, you turn into crystal. Like, you're forever preserved, but also you're not living anymore. So, it leads to a lot of, like, really pretty moments and heartfelt, like, heart-wrenching whatever. All of the characters have goals and personalities, and seeing them interact and help each other, or sometimes even directly antagonize one another, was not only entertaining, but endearing and pulled on my heartstrings a good few times. My point is that even with the combat ranging from being absolutely brain dead to mildly fun to watch as a spectacle, the game still hooked me until the end. More than one time. Because the story, and to an extent, the style, was there. It didn't have everything that I loved in a game, but I still loved it as an art piece, and it'll stick with me until I die. Now, how much of that is because the game came out when I was 8? No comment, but I still love RPGs. I still didn't think that I did at the time. I viewed this as one of the good ones and thought that RPGs on a whole were bad, and that there was something special about Final Fantasy XIII. Oh god, I sound like a fucking racist saying shit like, one of the good ones. Another important aspect of RPGs that made me pay attention, that elevate them up from among the rest, are the important involved mechanics. This is the one that I finagled a bit into fitting into the P.I.S.S anagram. Basically, what I'm referring to with these is just shit that elevates a game a step above the simplistic elemental weaknesses chart, followed by some ultimate moves or something. I find that level of depth fairly bog standard and not enough to keep me fully interested. Not enough to keep me biting my nails, waiting desperately for daddy to keep drip feeding me more content like the complacent little bitch I am. I want shit that's more involved. So, let's start with Persona, a game that's pretty quickly become one of my favorite game franchises of all time, and a game series that's a pretty big reason as to why I'm even making this video. Persona has a one more system that basically incorporates the elemental weaknesses system that every RPG has into something more involved. When you hit a weakness, the enemy will become stunned and give you more chances to attack. If used well, theoretically, this could let you finish a ton of fights without even being hit once. The loop of finding a new enemy and slathering all your different elements in its face until one of them makes the bad boy sneeze can be really fun and rewarding. Especially when you start getting the hang of it and you can begin to tell when an enemy might be weak to something based purely off of its aesthetic design choices. And that also means that when an enemy's come out that you don't have the element to deal with yet, or just plain don't have any weaknesses, it makes for much more interesting gameplay. Every encounter in Persona is a puzzle waiting to be unlocked. But once you understand that puzzle and you're hit with another encounter with the same enemies, generally speaking, it's over fairly quickly and it doesn't waste your time. Other games will go out of their way to waste your time with tedium. You can understand how to win, but it won't change the time to win all that much, leading to you feeling like you're constantly wasting a bunch of time. This system makes things a little more interesting with figuring out the best way to take advantage of the downed enemy, but but it's also far more rewarding when you actually do the thing. In a highly repetitive by nature genre of games, something to cut down on that tedium is a great reward for playing smartly, and it feels fantastic when you learn how to abuse it just right. That's a compliment, not a detraction. And of course there's one more mechanic that I would like to mention in this section, and one that comes from our good old friends at Nintendo. Oh boy. Have you ever heard of Super Mario RPG? No? What about Mario and Luigi? No? Then you must have heard of Paper Mario. Oh, you have. Whoa, wait, not that one. Here, just take this, go back to your room, and play it. When you get back, I promise, nobody has to know what you just showed me. Paper Mario and its contemporaries share one huge mechanic that elevated these games' turn-based combat system into something that I genuinely look forward to every time. And for this example, we're going to look closely at the Thousand-Year Door, since it's my personal favorite, and it also just got a remaster, so I've been playing it on stream. Go watch me at twitch.tv/HoneyOniTwitch. By the way, if you haven't yet, yeah, it's HoneyOni Twitch, because HoneyOni was taken, and I want the name back, because it looks like the HoneyOni account has been dead for years. But what the fuck are you going to do when you aren't partnered? Talk to your Twitch contact? Paper Mario has this little thing called action commands. The action commands basically just check for specific timed button presses as your character does a specific move. For example, when Mario does a jump attack on an enemy, not only are you thinking about the strategy of what move to use on which enemy, and which enemy to attack first, etc., etc., standard fare, but you're also timing that button press to do more damage. Press the A button right as Mario stomps on the enemy's head and boom, extra damage. It works different for every single move that you can use, so as long as you keep playing, there's so much to learn and master the timing of. It's so special. I really just desperately want a game that combines the one more system with the action commands. I would die. Oh, and add badges. Oh god, the badges are great too. Every single badge is like a modifier to the gameplay. Some add new moves and others... Okay, so the acronym was P.I.S.S, right? What are we at now? S-I-P, SIP. And with the next one, what is it? SIPS? Kijo sips from the mug of self-inflicted disappointment wounds. Certain games really run with the personalization side of things and let you go pretty far with them. That being said, these are the titles that I am the least familiar with, but I do have a pretty good example from recently. Baldur's Gate 3. Now, games with personalization don't have to be as earth-shittingly personalized as Baldur's Gate 3, but my point, I believe, stands. While Bald Guy 3 has a different presentation for its mechanics and also asks you to position yourself around, I still think that at its core, it's running with a turn-based battle system, so I'm including it. Fuck you, it's my video, la 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 la, I can't hear you! Big Man's Mate 3 lets you create your own character to fight bears, dragons, and goblins with. But you can also build relationships, find friends, or develop romances. Your character is super customizable and a fairly blank slate with a million options that pretty heavily affect your character's relationships with others. I was never intensely fond of the combat, and in Act 2, when you hit the difficulty spike, I usually end up falling out of the game as it takes a pretty heavy focus on the combat, which, like I said, I never really loved. But in those early sections where the focus seems to be on your character and building them up and making meaningful choices for how that character interacts with others, it hooked me real good. And judging by the flood of positive reviews online, I assume that you guys loved it too. Probably not something that I had to explain in intense depth. I feel like most of the gaming population understands pretty heavily how important personalization is when you're willing to spend thousands of dollars on the minor dopamine rush that you get when you play as that character you liked from that funny show in Fortnite. Using title cards as transitions slaps. I don't even have to write myself an outro and an intro for a section tying the thoughts together. I can just slap a title card in the middle and you guys think it's artistic and cool. Fucking idiot. Games with intense, oozing style can penetrate almost any genre-avoidant nerd. If a game looks pretty enough or appeals to your visual tastes, you might pick up a game you know you probably won't end up liking. The beautiful, gorgeous landscapes and character designs of Sea of Stars, the stunning pop-out visuals of games like Persona 5 Royal or, hell, the Persona 3 remake, I think that has some of my favorite visual design of any game ever right now. The papercraft handmade aesthetic of Paper Mario games. One of the few things that I prefer from the newer games in the series over the old ones. How every little thing looks like it could be held in your hand, from some random debris and clutter to the fucking water. But I think the game that makes my point the most elegantly is Octopath Traveler. Back in 2017, Project Octopath Traveler, which was named that, I assume, because they meant to change the name at some point, but oh well, was revealed to the world in a Nintendo Direct as a Nintendo Switch timed exclusive, and, well, let's just say that it gave off an intense first impression. I don't care who you were. The style was so new and fairly well handled that people noticed and paid attention. No game had ever looked like this before, and all over the internet you would see people saying things like, "I never liked RPGs, but Octopath looks good," or something else along those same lines. I don't think it's the best style an RPG has ever employed, but it most assuredly got a ton of non-RPG fans to buy and play a game that they otherwise wouldn't have if it just looked like another standard pixelated RPG. It's also worth mentioning that Octopath Traveler had kinda shitty dialogue, and I know I personally was way too invested just based purely off of the visuals. I hard coped and was claiming that the battle system was super innovative and actually fun for a turn-based RPG, but it's all a fairly standard affair, all things considered. A good-looking game, as much as I might hate to admit it sometimes, can bring in an audience that otherwise wouldn't have played that game. Good graphics do not a good game make, but damn, they really don't hurt. And with games that are usually pretty willing to remove your active participation in a super meaningful way, pretty visuals to get lost in can be really helpful for keeping your interest. I don't think that this is the exclusive list of things that makes what I consider to be a great, special, worthy RPG for us non-RPG lovers to play, but I think this gives a pretty good idea of where I feel about these sorts of games. Also, I'm gonna be honest, with so many beautiful and amazing RPGs coming out recently, and more that I keep discovering and throwing on my backlog, I think I can finally say it. I can finally admit what I've known all along ever since that day that I spent playing Final Fantasy XIII, staring breathlessly at the time, incredibly graphically impressive and beautiful world being presented in front of me with characters and a world that I actually cared for. I love RPGs. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hope there were some funny little gaffes in there for you. Maybe you guys also enjoy RPG games. I feel like my experience with this isn't like just me, right? If any of you had an experience like this, talk about it to me in the comments. And don't forget to ring the bell and lick my tape. But in all seriousness, I read every one of the comments, and I'd love to hear about your experiences with RPGs and how it might have changed over the years if you've matured, or as games themselves have matured in the medium in some ways. Anyways, I feel like this is the part of the video where I'm supposed to thank my patrons, but I don't have a Patreon. I shut it down after I was inactive for too long, and I got self-conscious, so I guess this is where we part ways. Yeah, goodbye. Single take? Fuck it. I don't care. I make cringe videos on the internet that suck for losers.